Hey, it's Mike Cambrett with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in the industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by Clothier, one of the biggest names in the real estate investing industry. And today, we're going to talk about how to turn your real estate investing business from a hobby into a real business. Before we get started, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Kent, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on. So, I don't know if I certainly can't do an introduction to do you justice, and I know a lot of folks know who you are, but why don't you kind of give us a background about how you got into real estate investing and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Sure, man. I got involved in real estate investing, I guess, let me think here, January of 2003, down in South Florida. I actually came from a grocery wholesaling background, believe it or not,
Yep.
and got into this industry kind of by default. Probably get a lot of the ways that a lot of your listeners and viewers have, where
Yep.
went to one of the little seminars and events and signed up and just became extremely passionate about it. Started applying a lot of the stuff that I knew from my previous background and turned a really small wholesaling operation into a really big wholesaling operation over the last 11 years. And along that way, we've developed some really cool systems that have helped a lot of people. So whether it's lead generation for buyers or sellers or money, we've got that's kind of the systems that we developed internally have turned into a lot of really cool products for a lot of other investors out there.
Yeah. And I know you're going to talk about it today. I mean, it's so critical when folks are trying to turn their operation into a business to have have systems. Whether you buy a franchise or buy tools from you or create them yourself, unless you create those systems, you don't really have a business. You have a job, right?
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Man, you said a mouthful right there.
Yeah. So I know you want to talk today. I know you're really passionate about helping people turn this into a sustainable business and maybe getting out of whatever situation they're in, getting out of a job they hate, or being able to provide for their family and do things that maybe they never could do by working for somebody else. Where do you want to start? You want to talk about how to kind of make that transition out of a job into real estate investing for those that are kind of looking to do that?
Yeah, I think, I know a lot of different people come at the industry from a number of different angles. And I think probably the lowest barrier of entry is people come in, whether it's through a webinar, whether through a book, seminar, website, whatever the case may be, they get a little taste, get a little excited, and they go off and they just start accumulating stuff, right? For lack of better ways of saying it, and don't really treat it from the very beginning as a business, right? And then they wonder why they aren't having the kind of success. And so I think probably the biggest thing that I've seen over the years, and I've certainly experienced it with our students over the years, is that treating this truly as a business, and you know this better than anybody, like a franchise would or any of those types. I mean, where you come in and there are systems, there are disciplines, there are activities that you have to do every day. There's a methodology, there's a process. Those things are critically important to success, in my opinion. Yeah.
So how do you advise people to kind of get started? Because a lot of folks, a lot of times don't know where to get started, or they know all the information. It's just knowledge, and they've got to turn that into action and go kind of make it happen.
I think, I can tell you a book that really, I'll give you two books here that really changed my life in a very powerful way. One is called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and it is not a how-to book. You can probably read it in about 20 minutes, but when you get to the end of it, it will, if you're anything like me, it will have a profound effect on you, and you're realizing that that the element of time is actually working against you.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have a very finite amount of time on the out here. We all do. And when you come to terms with that and you realize that, as Steve Jobs said in his Stanford commencement address, that we're already naked. You have nothing to fear. You might as well go for it. You got one shot at this. Go get everything that you can. When you just kind of come to that realization, then all of the things that are holding you back, that paralysis, right, and that flood of information begins to kind of just move out of the way. And you start taking actions that quite frankly scare you. And you know this as well as anybody, as I'm sure a lot of other people out there that are listening and watching right now know this, is that the life of an entrepreneur is not that we don't, have fear, that there aren't things out there that absolutely terrify us.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we overcome it,
right,
and that we fight through it, right? And that is the very first step, right? You can be, I can't even tell you how many really, really smart broke people I know, and especially in this industry.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then on the other side, really, really dumb rich people.
Yeah.
Meaning that it's rarely about what you know. It is almost always about the actions that you're willing to take.
Yep.
And so I would tell anybody that the very first step is just realizing that you're going to have to do things that scare you. And you're going to have to understand that time is not on your side. Don't act like tomorrow is promised. Go push yourself. Go do things. Go get out there and be, go get a property under contract, or go talk to a cash buyer, or go, these things are the actions that are ultimately going to lead you where you want to get to, but nothing will happen if you don't do those. Right. And the second book I would tell you that this book was really powerful for me was The E-Myth.
Oh, yeah.
By Michael Gerber, The Entrepreneur Myth. I mean, that book changed my life forever.
Yep.
Where I began to really look at my business as a business, right? Evaluate everything I was doing versus what is typically the life of a real estate investor is we get trapped into thinking, well, if I stuff these envelopes and put the stamps on them and hand address them, I'm saving money. Or if I go paint the house myself, I'm saving money. Yeah. And all of these things that, again, work against us from a time standpoint, when you just frame it in the terms of you can't work in your business and work on your business at the same time. Right. So when you start working on it, now you're actually treating it like a business versus working in it where you're treating it like a hobby.
Right. Right.
So those are two things I can tell you that when you start making those mental shifts, things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what advice do you give to people to just kind of get out of the gate? And let's just maybe start with like lead generation.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of, goal planning. Like if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you can, in this business, it's fairly easy to back into, there's some fairly tight industry rules of thumb of if you get this many leads, you can convert this many into buys. And, maybe every once in a while one falls out with title issues, but you can kind of reverse engineer how many leads you need to get. And based on how much money you want to make and what you're going to do with those houses, whether you're going to wholesale them or rehab them,
right, then
you essentially can figure out how much you need to spend on advertising to hit your goals ultimately. But
well, I can tell you that, I probably have a completely different school of thought than just about anybody else out there. And in fact, I would argue that it's probably the single biggest reason why we have been as successful as we have over the years is because we just march to the beat of a different drummer here, right? And I can tell you, we start with the other direction.
Okay.
Very few people realize that the industry right now, that about 40% on national average, 40% of the transactions are happening with cash buyers.
Right.
Right? So that is a huge market segment. That is a massive amount of people that are every day writing huge checks for property. So one of the big shifts for me is that I found myself when I started wholesaling deals, I was in the transaction business, meaning I would buy it or I'd get it under contract and then I would immediately try to go and flip it to somebody, and hope that I found somebody and get it done. And that was the way I was doing it. Everything changed when we went the other way. When we said, let's go start with the people that are actually buying. Let's go start with the people that are paying cash, and let's just fill orders for them. Let's just bring the deals to them that they want.
Yeah.
And so we, started pushing our business that way, and this is the same thing I would tell anybody, starting day one, is that when you start with the cash buyers, the beauty of this is, if you're a brand new investor, is the cash buyers are already buying. They know exactly what they want to buy, where they want to buy, the price they want to pay, what their appetite for rehabs or not.
Right.
Neighborhoods, everything. They've got this punch list that they've already created, and they buy multiples. So in other words, we figured out over the years that the average cash buyer buys about 2.5 houses a year from us.
Okay.
And same with our students out there, between 2 and 2.5. We know that our average wholesale deal is roughly about 10 grand, right? So if you just do simple math, at 2 houses for every cash buyer at 10 grand, every cash buyer is now worth $20,000 to us.
Yep.
I want to make 100 grand this year. I need to go find 5 cash buyers. I'm 5 relationships away from making 100 grand. In order to deal with cash buyers, I have to market directly to them. I have to engage them, and then I have to just kind of back into what they want. But that makes it infinitely easier to go find property when I just know what somebody will pay for it.
Right.
Versus the other side, which most people are taught, is go get it under contract, hope that you got the right price in the right area, and then go try to sell it. And I can tell you from a lot of experience, hope is not a strategy, baby.
Yeah.
that does not work.
Yeah.
So I would tell anybody, you start with cash buyers. That's where probably 80% of our efforts are spent is in developing cash buyer relationships.
Okay.
And then we just turn around and use the other 20% of our efforts in just motivating the market or marketing directly for sellers or properties, MLS, realtors, whatever, to create the opportunities to just fill their orders constantly.
Yeah.
We're just working backwards.
Yep.
Always.
Yep. And what do you do when you find more cash buyers than leads? I mean, leads is even if you're starting with the end in mind, leads are a critical part of the business, finding deals. How do you typically advise people on kind of filling those orders, or if they can't fill them all, how do you sustain those relationships?
Well, I can tell you what we've found, and this isn't a hard and fast rule, right?
Yep.
Every market changes a little bit, and
Absolutely.
it ebbs and flows. But the hedge funds over the years have proven this to be very, very effective. What I tell my students and my clients all over the country is act like the hedge funds. And here's what I mean. The hedge funds don't know anything about real estate, right? They're certainly learning over the last couple of years,
Right.
but when they came into this market, they knew nothing. All they knew is that there was an opportunity.
Yeah.
The one thing the hedge funds absolutely know how to do is how to sell money. So take any hedge fund. What do they all do the same thing. They're coming into Dallas or Memphis or San Diego. They all do the same thing. They issue a press release. They get on the news. They get in the papers, and they say, BlackRock to invest $50 million in single-family homes in the next 5 years in the San Diego County.
Yeah.
For more information, contact Susie at BlackRock.com, right?
Yep.
So immediately, their phones are ringing off the hook with everybody and their brother calling them, trying to figure out what they want to buy.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have found the exact same mentality can work for us. When we have an overwhelming demand from our cash buyers, and our average cash buyer probably has $500,000 to $1 million to spend. Well, if you've got 5 or 10 of those guys, you've got anywhere from $5 to $10 million.
Yep.
And so now you go call a few realtors, you go call a few wholesalers, you go contact a few people and say, listen, I've got $5 to $10 million burning a hole in my pocket that I need to spend in the next 7 days. You'll get some attention.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly oversimplifying it, but for the sake of time, that's the concept, right? Is that money talks. Money can absolutely motivate a market. And a lot of people are very fearful because they're like, man, I don't have the money. Well, it's not about having it. Technically the hedge funds are selling somebody else's money as well.
Right.
And you're all doing is the same thing.
Yep.
Right back down the path.
Yep. Yep. Well, what are your thoughts on folks that have basically started and they just can't get that traction? I mean, one of the things about real estate investors typically is they're very independent. They tend to not really communicate a lot. For newer folks, what kind of advice do you give them to kind of build community in their market and start kind of embracing into the local real estate investor community?
Well, I would tell you that if you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, and I know a lot of people claim that they've read it, but actually read it.
They own
it. They own it. It's on a shelf, but I mean actually read it. one of the most powerful concepts that Napoleon Hill talks about in that book, most powerful concepts of the wealthy, quite frankly, is the power of masterminding.
Yeah.
Right? You are a product of the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
That is a vital component of being a successful entrepreneur, is taking that very, very seriously. This is not a solo sport, not at all.
Yeah.
You got to take very seriously the people you surround yourself with and the information that you're feeding yourself, right? And because you are a product of what you believe. So if you believe that there's no deals out there, you believe there's no cash buyers, well, you're going to make that real.
Right.
Or you can sit there and surround yourself with people that are playing at the level you're playing at or much higher, and follow their lead.
Right.
And do what they do. I can tell you that, in your local market, they don't even have to be involved in real estate. There are entrepreneurs, there are people that are playing at a very, very high level. And what I have found is that we love talking about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, I can tell you, I get so much joy out of reaching down and helping somebody get to the next level, kind of sharing with them what was shared with me.
Right.
I have yet to ever hear of anybody getting there by themselves.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Right. I've always heard of people, somebody showed me the way and pulled me up and showed me how to do it. And so I think that most people just need to realize that those mentors exist. They want to do that, but you have to be willing to go and seek them out. You have to be willing to, if you don't have a group like that, well, then you need to put the group together. You need to go set up a meetup, and you need to go invite the people. And here's the good rule of thumb. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. It's that serious. It's that simple. You've got to be the person that's, getting pulled up when you're brand new and shown the ropes and taking the actions and doing the things that it takes, like I said, that scare you a little bit. It's uncomfortable to go and ask somebody for help. That's one of those actions I was talking about that people don't want to do. But
Right.
I'm telling you, if you do it and you take it very seriously, then you'll get there much quicker. And I mean, that's part of franchising. That's part of mentoring. That's part of coaching. That's part of masterminding. That whole concept of there are people to help you is really, really powerful. It's very rare that somebody gets there sitting around at their kitchen table all by themselves and
Yep.
trying to figure it out.
What's funny is in my experience, a lot of people that people that you aspire to be like, a lot of times they're very open to sharing their information. And most times, and the fact is most people are afraid to ask them. So when you go ask somebody, if you're that one guy that ends up asking them, they're happy to help. And they're like, they're kind of thinking, I can't believe more people don't ask me for advice on this or help to get started or whatever it is. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I've been very fortunate. It's kind of ironic that a lot of the quote unquote gurus out there are actually students of mine, right? Where I kind of mentor these guys because I've had more than my fair share of success in this industry and have certainly made enough mistakes that I feel like I can help them. But to your point, even at that level, guys are like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that you would help me. I was like, I'll gladly help you, right?
Yeah.
It's just part of when you get to a certain level, at least in my experience, you just realize that, man, it's pretty cool to kind of pull back the curtains and say, this is a lot more simplistic than you think it is. Yeah. And that, that's a really good point. Let me just say that one of the things I often share with people is this business is very, very simple. It's not easy. And I don't want to imply that there's not a lot of hard work, but I will tell you, it is extremely straightforward. There's not a lot of, there between myself and, hundreds of others and yourself as well, it's broken down into very specific actions that you just continue to do over and over in a repeated fashion, and you start to see success. This is not rocket science, not even close. Yeah.
It's funny because with your wholesaling background, I came from a retail background where, I was involved with a lot of merchants for like large retail companies where we're just sourcing product at as cheap as we could possibly get it, quality aside, and then selling it on to someone else and just making a market. It was funny that I came into this business, and I know you did too, with no experience, but you can use those fundamentals to take from other businesses or other industries, and it's pretty simple. There's really just 4 or 5 main things. You need to have money, you need to have buyers, you need to have sellers, and you need to work hard.
That's it. Seriously. And I think there's a lot of, especially as brand new investors. Yeah. I don't think this is unique to the real estate investing industry, but I think new entrepreneurs in general, they believe that this must be harder than it really is, right? There's some comfort in telling themselves that, success is really, really hard and difficult. And, they find a lot of comfort in the fact that there's this big, huge mountain. And the reality of it is it's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's very straightforward. And and the beauty of our industry is it's extremely profitable.
Yep.
If you just get involved and start taking actions every day.
That's the key. Is like you said, we kind of started off by taking it from a hobby to a business. Is that sometimes it's the best thing and the worst thing that can happen to a new real estate investor is they get a big juicy deal right out of the gate and they think, wow, this is easy. And then, they just think it's going to happen again tomorrow without putting in place a structure to make it happen again and again.
Totally. I mean, I can tell you that one of a key component that I found over the years that really kept me in a position to where I was building a business was it became a game where I was like, I want to fire myself as often as I can. What am I doing today that I don't want to do that has to be done that I can put somebody else in place, right? Fire myself as often as I can. And that rule of thumb has treated me and my family very, very well. And that would be the same that I would tell, anybody. Y'all are great. You just did a big deal. Wonderful. Now, how can you do the same deal with even less involvement on your part?
Right.
Right. What are the components that have to be done? What are the things that have to be done that led to that deal? What did you do that you can measure, that you can improve upon? But how can you do it where you're not involved?
Right.
And that philosophy, that way of thinking, as long as you've always got it in place, that's how you'll start to build a business.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Kent, any thoughts on kind of where the market is right now? I mean, I know it's different all across the country. A lot of us are kind of feeling the pinch of finding deals, which is interesting. In your model, you focus on finding buyers first, to the point to where, I feel in my system, we're one of the, we're classically trained to buy deep. And oftentimes we are wholesaling to some other local outfits that have always focused on what you're doing and just finding those sellers that are willing to pay a little bit more. Maybe they have a different exit strategy in mind. They don't analyze a deal like we do. And so many times we're actually wholesaling onto another group that is wholesaling them onto somebody else. And we've decided that we're okay with that because, they're able to get it done somehow. But shame on us for not having figured that out a long time ago. But I know the market is changing in a lot of different directions throughout the country, but certainly it feels like it's tightened up over the last, a year or so. Where do you think things are going?
I don't think there's any doubt that it's tightened up, but I definitely think that and I've shared this with a lot of the common people that you and I know inside of the mastermind and what have you, that it's always a product of what you believe the market is, period. So I can tell you that, one of our systems that we use is our Find Motivated Seller system, where it's a vacant property database, high equity, all this kind of stuff. And in that database alone, we have, 2.2 million vacant properties every month across the country, right? We have 29 million properties that are owned free and clear. So when you look at it at that macro level and you look at it and wow, dude, there's 29 million houses here, and I'm just trying to buy and sell 1,000.
Right.
From that perspective, I can tell you, I don't feel personally like it's really tightened up too much for us. You got to be willing to. You may have to be willing to go a little bit further than you've typically had to go. And I mean, it's not low hanging fruit anymore. Right. I mean, we actively market. We spend a lot of money to generate leads, and we invest a ton of money there. But at the end of the day, the opportunities are still there. It's just you got to work a little bit harder to get them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. And there's still a lot of untapped potential. Like, I can tell you the vacant property, that vacant property database for us for the last year was a game changer for us, because it suddenly we were able to get to properties that other people just didn't realize.
Right.
And so that my perspective is a little different because of that.
Sure.
Right. Prior to that, when we were duking it out with everybody in our market and all competing for the same things, I probably would have agreed with you. Now we just see it a little different.
Awesome. Well, Ken, any last minute thoughts on advice to people to kind of take action and get started?
Yeah, I mean, I could just, you know, we have a saying in my company that the time is now. We're extremely passionate about it. We live it, we breathe it every day, and I can tell you that those are words to operate from every single day. Is that do not ever con yourself into believing that you'll get to it next week, tomorrow, next month. Realize that there's a massive opportunity today. You got a chance in this industry. You know, I love this industry because of how much wealth can be accumulated so quickly.
Right.
Anybody can do this. And the time is now to jump in and just get it done. Stop messing around. Stop telling yourself you will eventually, or whatever the case may be. Just do something today and every day from this point forward that really scares you, but leads you towards that goal.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
That's great advice. Yeah, it's funny. Some of the people that I know, you probably hear the same thing. A few years ago, some people I know that wanted to get started, well, the market's too bad, I'm going to wait till it improves. Now the market's too good, and I'm hearing there's no inventory. It's a mental thing. You've just got to jump in.
You got to jump in. I mean, there's never a perfect time, but there's always opportunity, especially in the game we're in. Right? This is we make money whether it's the market's at the top or at the bottom. Right. We're always making money because we're selling in a secondary market. What you hear on the news is irrelevant.
Right.
It just doesn't matter.
Yep.
We're in a completely different ballgame.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, Kent, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, no problem. I'm glad to do it. Yep. Take care.
All right, stay in touch. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.